Hey, what's up, my Radical Squad? How's everybody doing? My name is DelmarshaeWalker. Welcome back to my channel. If you have been watching my channel, you know how I feel when it comes to kids, kids trafficking kids, just misusing kids, abusing kids, anything to do with kids. You know where my heart is with that and how I feel about that. And so I just want to start off by showing a video that I did back in December of 2022. You see this happening all the time. It truly hurts my heart because these kids are just so innocent and they depend on adults to look after them. They depend on the adults to take care of them. And the people they're depending on are letting them down left and right. The people that they're depending on are just letting them be victimized, letting them be victims. That's why I felt so strongly when I said all those kids that were sent over here by themselves should have been sent back home. Because at one point in time, I think over 1,000 some kids became missing that was in the that the United States had, that was in the camps they had those kids. I think 1,000 some kids went missing. I don't even know if they found those kids, and they were supposed to be in the protection of the United States, of the government, and they went missing.
Two of the children in ORR custody that have come across the border. These are the unaccompanied minors. The New York Times published this report that was pretty horrific about labor, but this is not new. This is something Senator Portman and I and several others have worked on for several years, trying to be able to figure out how we can actually manage this. The Times actually identified that there is a stat that's 85,000 children that HHS lost immediate contact with them once they were placed in sponsorship. So that's my first question. Is that number accurate? Because once HHS does the vetting, places them with sponsors, the next question is, do you know where they are, even for those first 30 days? And then when you get to day 31, do we know where they are? And if I can push this a little farther, if they don't show up for their first hearing, is someone from HHS checking on them? Because at that point, they're lost.
And Senator, every week I get briefed by my team, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, on this situation with the unaccompanied migrant kids and where we stand. I've never heard that number of 85,000. I don't know where it comes from.
Okay.
And so I can't attest. I would say it doesn't sound at all to be realistic. And what we do is we try to follow up as best we can with these kids. Congress has given us certain authorities. Our authorities essentially end the moment we have found a suitable sponsor to place that child with. We try to do some follow-up, but neither the child or the sponsor is actually obligated to follow up with us. And we make every effort to follow up with them as best we can.
Thank you. Thank you for coming over. I think I speak for probably all the majority members on the panel. I'm very disappointed of all the answers you were unable to give us. To me, you look overall, we've gone from, in the final year, COVID was half of the final year, having 15,000 unaccompanied minors having to deal with. Within a couple of years, it shot up to 128,000, which the entire year was COVID-related. So a lot of these problems stem from just the open borders policy. You can't go from 15,000 kids to 128,000 kids and not think you're going to be able to remotely handle them. I'm very disappointed that you don't know percentage-wise those 128,000 you did DNA testing on. I know the Border Patrol does it occasionally, and it's not unusual for them to find a situation in which they were lying about whether the kid is related or not. You don't know the percent of these kids who you talk to one parent and percent two parents. I'd like to know that. I think it's relevant. A couple of years ago, under the past administration, it was considered nothing worse than having children separated from their parents for a few weeks. Now we have children being separated from their parents for the rest of their lives.
As you can see in that video, I stated about 1,000 kids, but it was actually approximately 1,500 kids that came across the border by themselves that was missing. They haven't found those kids or anything like that. And now, as of 2023, the number is now 85,000 that came across the border. No one has a clue where they're at. And it's just sad that 85,000 kids are missing. Those kids could have still been at home with their parents if they would have closed the border. And I feel like the audacity of the United States for our vice president, who did not want to go down and deal with the border crisis, our president that did not want to go down and deal with the border crisis, but they feel it's their responsibility to hop a plane to go to Africa to tell them what they should and shouldn't do within their country when they got humanitarian issues themselves. So y'all allow these kids to come into the country, but you don't feel like it's a humanitarian issue to know where 85,000 kids are. You want to tell Putin and sanction him about the kids that he's taken from Ukraine. I don't agree with that. I feel all kids should be with their parents. So I'm not saying I agree with Putin. But what audacity, like I said, what audacity as Americans that y'all feel y'all can go chastise someone else instead of dealing with your own problems here in America first? Shouldn't you take care of home first and make sure everything is secure at home? Make sure everything is all right at home before you start suggesting something to someone else? How can you point fingers and say, y'all need to allow homosexuality in your country, because if you don't, we're not gonna deal with you? What about the issue you got with allowing kids to come across the borders without parents? A border that should be closed without parents. Don't you think that's a humanitarian issue that needs to be dealt with? Excuse me. Before these kids ever came in the United States, you want to know what one of the problems we have in the United States is when it comes to child protective services. It's a lot of kids that are born in America who are put in these situations with child protective services, and they're saying they're so overwhelmed that they do not go check on those kids. Some of those kids are missing. Some of those kids have been killed. Some of those kids have been abused, but they're saying they have so many cases and not enough workers that is burdening the system, and they can't keep up with all these kids, and they write false reports. But you're going to bring more kids into this country, 85,000, and all of a sudden it's like, oops, I don't know what happened to them. And really don't care, because you're over in Africa. Instead of trying to figure out what happened to those kids, you're in Africa. You hopped a plane to go to Africa, but don't want to hop a plane to go to one end of the country to the next. That makes absolutely no sense. Like I said before, they deal in child sex trafficking. They also deal in organ harvesting. You might say, well, a child, no, yes, because if you are an elite, if you're a billionaire, if you got money and your child need a kidney, your child need a lung, your child need bone marrow, whatever your child need, and they can get another child from another country that can provide that for your child, you don't care about human life anyway. You're going to go ahead and say, okay, how much is going to cost me? Because like I said, how can 85 kids just go missing? Because if whoever y'all giving them to, if they really cared about kids, they want to make sure that y'all know where these kids are. They're going to be like, oh yeah, let me call on my appointment when I'm supposed to call. Oh, let me make sure these kids are getting in school. Oh, let me make sure these kids are going to the doctor's appointment. You need paperwork to do that. You need addresses, you need phone numbers, but that lets you know they're not doing anything like that with them kids. Them kids probably out and they probably done sent them kids to different countries where they're being abused. Some people will get kids and use them as maids and domestic services, babysitters. Some of those kids are being raped. Some of those kids are being tortured. Some of those kids are being killed. All behind profit, all behind money. But they want to go around and talk to other countries, regardless of who the country is. Talk to other countries about what they should and shouldn't be doing because it's a humanitarian issue. And then the other thing that the United States is trying to do is also, I'm gonna show the videos. But the other thing they're trying to do is have kids they want to bring back, because back in the days, I don't know if y'all remember, but back in the days in the United States, they used to have child labor. They didn't really care how, as long as you was able to do the job, they didn't care how old you were. They was going to allow kids to do the job. Kids was getting hurt. People were saying they should be in school. So they changed that. United States is going backwards. I'm sorry. They want to bring back child labor laws. So let me go ahead and show you those videos.
About child labor. Which country or what kind of society comes to mind? A sweatshop in South Asia or a mine in Africa? Well, we're not talking about these tonight. We're talking about child labor in America, the United States of America. They're making child labor legal. They're passing laws to allow children to do all kinds of jobs, even serve alcohol on night shifts. They're passing bills to enable this. Why? Because the US has a shortage of labor, and children can be used as cheap labor. What about child rights? Well, it's America. They can justify anything. And they have a justification for this one too. The lawmakers say children need work experience. Can you beat that? It's as absurd and exploitative as it sounds. State after state in the US is trying to pass laws that will crush child rights. Let me explain with what happened in Iowa. The state Senate has passed a bill. It's inconspicuously called Senate File 542. It allows 14 and 15-year-olds to work 6-hour night shifts until 9 p.m. during the school year and 11 p.m. during vacations. 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to work as long as adults. And what will they be doing? Not just the usual jobs of waiting tables and babysitting. Anyone above 15 will be able to work in assembly lines. You heard that right. They'll assemble goods or pack meat. And we aren't joking about the meat. Kids will now be able to work in jobs previously banned for minors, even dangerous jobs. As long as they're part of an approved training program, they can do these jobs. So expect to see internship offers from mines and meat packing plants for children. And what happens if the child gets injured? Initially, employers were going to get complete immunity, but then there was a heated debate in the Senate. So now children will be able to seek compensation. This was one of the compromises made to bring back child labor in the state of Iowa.
At the turn of the 20th century, the United States knew it had a child labor problem. The 1900 federal census revealed that 1.75 million children under the age of 16, more than 1 in 5, were working at this time. The Industrial Revolution had mechanized American and European manufacturing, and a cheap labor force was needed to complete repetitive tasks for hours on end. Children from poor families were targeted for these jobs because they would work for next to nothing and were less likely to strike than adults. State legislatures and the American public knew this was happening on a mass scale, but didn't act until they saw what it actually looked like.
It is so much underhanded, conniving things that are going on in the United States, in America. And a lot of Americans are so blinded by that because all they want to do is argue and bicker over things that does not matter. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I like this. I like that. They're not educating your kids because they want them to work. They don't want people who don't think. They want people who just work. They want people they're so addicted to drugs, whether it's prescription drugs or non-prescription drugs. They want to control every facet of your life. And especially as Christians, the last thing we should be doing is being loyal to a party when we should be loyal to God. Even if you're in politics, and if you're a Christian and you're in politics, I don't care if you're a Democrat. You should always do what's right. I don't care if you're a Republican. You should always do what's right, because as a Christian, if you're serving the God of the Bible, and you truly, your heart as a Christian, your main focus should be on God. That's who you bow down to. I don't care who the president is. You're bound down to God. I thought God is supposed to be first in your life over everything. So there's no party in heaven. There's no Democrat. There's no Republican. There's only God. And that's who you're supposed to be bowing down to. So regardless if you're voting, it's not I'm voting Republican. I'm not voting Democrat. I'm voting on who will do the best for all people in the country, in this country. No, everyone is not going to be satisfied. No, everyone's not going to be happy. But I cannot stand by and see something going wrong. I don't care. I could have voted for you, but if I'm seeing something that you're doing is wrong, I'm going to speak up about it. Because like I said, my loyalty is to God first, not man, God, because he's not going to be the president forever. Whoever the next president is not going to be the president forever, but God is going to be God forever. He's your final judge and jury. So stop fighting over stuff that do not matter. This country is supposed to be the United States of America. We're supposed to be a godly country. At this point, we don't even have rules, logical rules that we're following. Because, you know, a man is not a man, a woman is not a woman, is whatever you want it to be at this point. There's no laws, there's no rules, there's no unity in America. So before you start pointing fingers at everyone else, telling all these other countries what they should and shouldn't be doing, handle your business first in America. Deal with issues that we have in America and stop making up BS to argue about that is so irrelevant and don't matter. Where are these 85,000 kids? Why are we getting child labor laws and bringing them back? Why aren't kids being educated the way they should so they can go out and be productive citizens? Why are we lying to kids, telling them that they can change their gender when we know that is not true? When we know that is not a fact? Why do we have this cancel culture when people start speaking the truth? As long as it's facts I'm speaking and it's facts I can prove, why would I have to ever worry about getting canceled? Getting canceled for what? All this BS we make up when there's real issues going on in this world that can really affect you, and then also your soul when you die. Where are you going? Where do you want to go? If you're a Christian, honestly, where do you want to go? Forget about culture. Or do you want to be in hell with culture? You know what I'm saying? Are you that blinded by society, by culture, that even if they're on that wide road to hell, you're right behind them because you're saying, well, you know, I don't want to get left behind. I don't want to get canceled. I want to be part of the in crowd. It's like, at what point are we going to wake up and do what's right? Regardless, Democrat, Republican, regardless, Christian, non-Christian, regardless of who you are, there are some things that should just be innate, inherent principles and values. What happened to that? But I just, like I said, I didn't want to keep you long. I just wanted to say that. I hope everyone's having a blessed day. Peace.